Siga su rodilla, ya sea que esté con nosotros aquí parado o esté sentado allá un poquito. Pedimos a los demás panelistas que nos acompañen, por favor. Es para que sepan que no te sé. ¿Sí? Ah, bueno, perfecto. Sí. A los demás panelistas los invitamos por favor a que pasen, si fueran tan amables. Vamos un poquito contra el tiempo, disculpen que los estemos correteando, pero sí vamos un poquito contra reloj. Ok, el licenciado Ricardo Montaudon-RCI es presidente y director ejecutivo de RCI Latinoamérica. Ricardo Montaudon tiene más de 25 años de experiencia dentro del sector de la propiedad vacacional en las áreas de ventas, administración de bases de datos, mercadotecnia, operaciones, desarrollo de negocios, marcas y administración de relaciones con clientes. Durante su carrera en la industria ha asumido exitosamente diversas posiciones como gerente de afiliaciones, director de servicio de afiliaciones para RCI Latinoamérica, gerente general de Ocean Imperial, división de tiempo compartido del Hotel Omni en Ixtapa, así como director general de RCI Brasil, vicepresidente de desarrollo de negocios de RCI Management en Corona, California y Parsippany, New Jersey. En febrero de 2004, Ricardo se integró al equipo de RCI Latinoamérica y el Caribe. A finales de 2004, Ricardo fue promovido a la posición de vicepresidente senior de negocios y actualmente, debido a sus múltiples logros, Ricardo es presidente y director ejecutivo de RCI para Latinoamérica y el Caribe, asumiendo de esta forma el liderazgo de toda la región. Ricardo también es miembro fundador de Amdetur y actualmente es miembro del consejo directivo. Además, es trustee de American Resort Development Association. Un fuerte aplauso para Ricardo.
Vamos a tener que cambiar ese baño porque me va a sentir muy viejo. Y no es cierto, yo no prometí nada de que iba a ser breve los panelistas, Carlos. Pero sí les digo una cosa, ya se dieron instrucciones claras y precisas que no pueden servir la comida hasta que acabemos. Entonces, tranquilos, quédense sentados y vamos a empezar. Este panel también lo vamos a hacer en inglés por nuestros panelistas, porque además creo que así vamos a poder tener más profundidad. So we are going to have this panel in English. I just had some brief introduction comments. This panel is really, important. We've talked a little bit about Mexico brand, and now we're just going to talk more about the brand itself and how it affects our business, specifically in lead generation. That's the theme of our panel right now. And I'll just make I won't go very long into that. I'll let our experts talk about that. I'm not an expert in branding. And I'll just give a brief introduction. And I'm sorry for our panelists, it'll be very brief so that we can get into the subject as soon as possible and we are able to go to lunch as soon as possible. I'll start with ladies first. Julia Geffner, she's Vice President for North America for RCI. As the Vice President of Marketing for North America at RCI, Julia is responsible for the oversight and management of the marketing programs for RCI and the registry collection, members across all channels, including email, direct mail, social media, telemarketing, and search engine marketing. She also oversees market research and branding programs. Next, I'll introduce Frank Maduro. Frank, as Vice President of Marketing for the All-Inclusive Collection, Frank Maduro leads all marketing and advertising efforts for the luxury all-inclusive brand and its first-of-their-kind all-inclusive Hard Rock hotels in Mexico and the Dominican Republic. This includes Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Punta Cana, Hard Rock Hotel Cancún, Hard Rock Hotel Vallarta, and Aventura Palace, soon to be the Hard Rock Hotel Riviera Maya. We also have in our panel Carlos Aquino. He's the Vice President of Hospitality, Sales, and Marketing at the Villagroup Resorts. The Villagroup is a collection of upscale resorts with presence in key destinations in Mexico: Puerto Vallarta, Cabo San Lucas, Riviera Nayarit, Loreto, and Cancún. Mr. Aquino is leader of a creative sales and marketing teams with a strong exposure to influencing a balanced contribution from various distribution channels, and with the vision of promoting and developing unique brand proposition. And last but not least, Mark Robson. Mark Robson is Senior Vice President, Sales and Marketing with Aspire Lifestyles, has over 18 years experience designing and managing bespoke B2B and B2B2C customer loyalty program enhancements for Fortune 500 clients, luxury brands, and other brand-conscious companies. Over the course of his career, Mark has held senior positions in sales, marketing, operations, and business development for concierge firms and other enhancement providers, consistently using market inputs to address end consumer needs and drive program engagement and growth. He currently oversees the concierge membership benefit on behalf of Interval International. So this is our panelists, and I also have some questions here that I would like to ask to our panelists. But first, I would like to ask a general question to all to kind of get this started. And we've talked about how we've evolved in this last 5 years since 2007, 2013, 6 years, and how things have changed in the marketplace. So I would ask, and I would like to get some comments from each one of you of how have marketing tactics and techniques evolved over the past 5-6 years. And whoever wants to, Julia, you want to go first?
Sure. So it's very interesting because marketing tactics really have changed over the past 5 years. Consumers these days, we're finding, are very skeptical. They don't trust authority. And when we're talking about authority, we're really talking about the brand speaking about itself. So what's really important in today's day and age is to consider the new channels that have emerged. And there are just so many channels and new channels that you have to target your consumers, whether it's social, forums, rating and review sites, and you really need to consider how the brand is not the one speaking about itself anymore. You really have to realize that it's the consumers speaking about the brand, and they have all the power. So as marketing tactics have evolved, think about how the iPod radio met the iPod, and think about how TV met the DVR. So people don't have to consume advertisements, and because of that, they're looking for a much more authentic way of communication.
Thank you. And anybody else?
Well, obviously, digital is the key. The key actually changes that we are living. Obviously, very exciting times, very dynamic times, which have evolved in the marketing arena. Obviously, we have a much more struggle to get consumer attention. There is so much actually out there that several years ago it was actually thinking about, let's do our media plan, let's create this advertising, and let's communicate and put it out there. Now it's actually you have to have a message that is going to last. I mean, sometimes as short as 5 seconds, and aim to actually get somebody's attention. So definitely, it's all about actually being in that changing arena, and being able to actually know that social media as well is a very powerful influencer today in not only sales but marketing and branding.
Frank?
Yeah, and I'm also going to add the fact that marketing has changed tremendously in the past 15 or 20 years, as everybody here knows. The distribution channels have really changed the way the game is played, and now you're seeing a lot more user-generated content versus just brand-generated content. And also the user-generated content is creating a symbiotic relationship with the brands. No longer does the brand have a unique voice, it's the voice that is given to it by the followers. So that's really one of the biggest changes that we see, in addition to now having the ability to micro-market to your client base. Now you can speak to a particular client different than you would to another client, whereas before it was a shotgun approach because you really didn't have the tools that we have today. So it's changed not only in the past 5 years, in the past 2 years, it's changing today, and it will continue to evolve and change. And the younger generation will consume media completely different than you and I consumes it. So it's an evolving industry, and the hotel industry will really be affected just because of the user-generated content and how it affects the way that's consumed.
Mark?
What I'm going to say is echoing a lot of what you've already heard, but I think that when you look at changes in marketing today, you have to look at the mindset of the consumer and how that mindset has changed over the course of the past 5 to 10 years. And I think the way that they consider brands these days is really as a participant in a social dialogue. So no longer are they looking at quality and all of the types of attributes that went into brand definition before. Now they're looking at brands as, is that a company that I want to have a relationship with? And so that whole social landscape is really important when marketing to these consumers. I think the other thing is the mobile channel. So being able to optimize relevancy at different points in the product experience. Are you touching these customers at the right moment in time based on where they are, when they're talking to you, et cetera? And so companies that can leverage that, leverage mobile technology to do that are going to be the ones that end up winning the game at the end of the day.
Thank you. And we're talking about technology and social media and the mobile devices. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and he said, do you remember, when in the afternoons, we'd get together in the coffee shop in Vips Palmas, and we would have an hour-long discussions about the actors in one picture and who they were and if they were or not. Today, you see, the younger generation, they have a question, they have a doubt, they flip up their phone, they Google it, they say, no, you're wrong, it's this, period, end of discussion. So how do you market now to this new generation? I mean, it's becoming so much advanced and so much faster, I can't keep up with my kids, so how do you market to this generation? I don't know, Carlos, would you like to?
Yeah, it's obviously, an evolving challenge and adapting, to those growing trends. Undoubtedly, the power of knowledge is key in the consumer now, and I have a 6-year-old that actually maneuvers an iPad like a jet pilot, and definitely those are factors that are going to continue to be there. I believe that we as marketers need to recognize the changing platforms. There's stuff out there that's just unbelievable. People that basically don't listen to radio anymore in a car, but program a radio station on internet, and millions of people actually sitting there. And personally, I've actually explored that aspect and had tremendous results on the interaction and engagement of people actually clicking through a banner while they're listening to radio. And all of that. But I think the key thing, and one of the key things that presents to us as a quite unique opposition, is that before it was so difficult to measure some of these things. And one of the key things that we have now is that obviously whatever we do in this arena, in this changing dynamics, we are able to actually somehow measure and monitor and change and adapt.
I don't know if Frank would like to add something, or Julie?
Yeah, the market has changed. There is somewhat what people deemed as confusion, but it's really not confusion. It's really opportunities out there. The ability that we have today to distribute a message, the ability that we have to follow those who have brand affinity, it's unlike anything we've seen before. So even though for us who are a little bit older generation see it as overwhelming, we got to look at it as we have so many new opportunities, so many new tools. Our return on investment on marketing has never been so measurable as it is now, that instead of looking at it as overwhelming, we got to look at it as cost effective. And then the fact that we do have brands that are recognized really makes it a lot easier, because we can track trends. We can identify those who have affinity for the particular brand. So marketing, in a sense, even though there's so many more channels, has become a little bit more focused, and you can actually measure it better.
Just to kind of add a little bit around marketing and measurement of those tactics, you really can measure your influence in the social channels these days. There's a lot of tools that you can do that, and I know we at RCI have our Timeshare Online Listening Center, and using the tools that we have, we're able to track consumer sentiment over time, not only for RCI, but for our affiliated resorts, as well as for the timeshare industry in general. And the good news is that the perception is improving, and the more content that you put out there, the more conversations that you welcome to have, in your social channels, the more that positive content will be perpetuated. So something important to just remember about this younger generation is not to shy away from letting them drive the car. Allow them to talk in your social channels. We all know that we have outstanding products to offer, and you really shouldn't be afraid to allow them to say what they want to say about your brand, and you'll be surprised in that how many positive statements come out of that. And those statements are far more authentic and relevant, and people trust opinions of their peers.
Mark?
I think that with the younger generation, where mobile is so prevalent and omnipresent in their daily life, it's you really have to think through how they're using their devices in relation to your product. So my work is mainly on the benefits side and in retention and getting customers to use the membership product benefits that are available to them. I think that if you look at all of the touch points that are now available to us as marketers with these consumers, those could be considered opportunities that weren't there before. And so again, understanding customer scenario, customer relevance, and putting relevant content at the right moment in front of that consumer through a mobile device, again, is critical to engaging them.
Thank you. You know, I mean, to me it is overwhelming, and I'm very glad we have people like you, experts, managing this type of channels. But Frank mentioned something important, which is part of our theme today, which is brand affinity. And I'd like to ask Carlos, how does brand relate to marketing? How does it impact your business, specifically, you know, your lead generation, your sales, whether it's hotel, whether it's timeshare?
Yeah, definitely more and more. I mean, you know, branding and marketing. I mean, branding actually used to be, you know, an exercise. I mean, that was actually mostly reserved for, you know, people that watch Mad Men, and you know, develop a brand and Fortune 500 and Coca-Cola. But in reality, even small businesses today, it's more and more important to create the correlation between, you know, existing customers, marketing that you do, and your sales tactics, because it all correlates a lot much more actively than it did before. One of the key elements, I mean, in our industry, I mean, in my particular case, our company is a multi-use property, so obviously we cater to hotel guests, we cater to timeshare members, and we cater to full and fractional members. So we have to make that all to work together. But one of the key elements that I can illustrate to actually you know, show the importance of this is the marketing that we do, how we communicate to get new customers, is a source of pride and a source of value for those existing customers that we have. When we go out and engage into a celebrity program and bring a celebrity into our property, that actually indeed obviously creates a whole sense of value for those existing members, feeling proud, I own here. And this is what we have to do. So it's very important to try to correlate all those elements together, more and more important today, because those new customers are eventually your existing customers that refer you to new customers, and it's that constant cycle.
And I don't know if Frank, you'd like to add something, and also what's that loyalty, membership loyalty does brand bring?
It definitely brings a level of loyalty amongst clients. Once again, the word brand affinity is very, very important, because people identify themselves with brands. As much as we like to say that we don't identify, everybody identifies themselves with a brand. Hotel products specifically, because it reflects your lifestyle. It's an aspirational product. So the brand definitely plays a big role in your customer retention and lead generation. You know, it's a lot easier to speak to somebody that you know has brand affinity towards your brand than just kind of shooting out there in the dark. So huge influence. We recently saw it because we introduced the Hard Rock brand to multiple destinations. And the way that we spoke to our clients was a new way of speaking to them. The way we actually were able to reach a whole new demographic of clients really opened our eyes to the strength of the brand.
And before I ask Julia to add on it, can a brand hurt you?
Yeah, you know, I think a brand can hurt you. Right now, hotel products specifically is so dependent on your online rating or the reviews that you have. So if you have a brand that has particular negative impact or correlation in certain areas or regions, it affects you overall. So a brand definitely can hurt you. Also specifically, if you're not talking to the right audience that really is engaged to your brand, you'll also do a lot of damage. And you know, we've noticed a lot of over-promising and under-delivering by brands, which also is a big factor as to how a brand can hurt you.
Mark, Julia, would like to add anything else to that, or?
You know, just one thing when we're talking about brand and how you might be able to influence that is just the importance of content. So the more content you put out there in the marketplace in the form of video content or reviews content or photos, those are going to rank highly in search engines. So the more content that's out there, the more you're able to demonstrate and show people about your brand. And the other thing, if you do have a brand that doesn't have 100% of the positive reviews, which nobody's really has these days, is just to not shy away from acknowledging those posts. So if you do see a negative review out there, it's important that you acknowledge it and state that you are working to fix that program. So something that we're very passionate about at RCI is we really engage in what's called social customer service. And we actually, you know, listen to what our consumers have to say out in our social channels. And, you know, we have 290,000 Facebook fans. And we listen to what they have to say. We respond appropriately. And we immediately resolve their issues. And sometimes we take them offline because you don't want to engage in a significant dialogue and back and forth. But it's important. People respect the fact that not everybody's going to have a wonderful thing to say. But as long as you acknowledge it and you're handling the situation, that's all they want to see out of your brand.
Mark, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, just something that I think is really important. I have an operations background, and when I see the impact of social media on customers' purchase decisions, it's really important. The operational element is really, really important. So delivering that customer experience at every stage in the product life cycle is really important, and the opportunity to define the brand at those different touch points and really deliver that experience is what people are then going to talk about, and I think we're at a place where word of mouth is more key than ever before.
Thank you. Let's get into a little more detail here. Frank, you were mentioning that with the social media, with the technology we have today, you can speak to one client differently from another. How does brand and how maybe you can give us an example how you talk to your membership or to your clients. How does brand influence clients of different geographic regions or countries, or maybe even, you know, segments?
You know, a brand has a big, there's a big correlation between brand and different regions, demographic regions, whether you're North American, South American, Mexican, European. It really plays a big role into how your brand is perceived. You know, the Hard Rock brand, for example, I'm very familiar with it, means one thing to a particular client in the US versus a client in India or a client in China. Even though the Hard Rock has 83% recognition rate around the world, you know, it doesn't have the following that you would have expected from the UK or the US, but yet in India and China, which is totally unexpected, it has a much higher following. So brand definitely plays a role into how your product is perceived. It's also perceived, whether it's high-end, low-end, depending on the experience they encounter in their own territories. So brand definitely plays a big role geographically.
Carlos, what aspects, and again getting into more detail, what specific aspects of marketing and branding influence prospect generation? And when I mean prospect generation, including referral programs, which is, you know, the prospect generation is the first, but then you can have a referral programs. How does that tie in, or how does that work?
Well, yeah, obviously, you know, prospect and lead generation, you know, in our particular industry, you know, has always been associated, a lot of times associated with hard sales and, you know, reaching, I mean, to clients. And more, it's obviously actually important to recognize that the process that becomes actually a lot more smoother when there is a recognition and there is actually an exposure that has occurred, before. So in our particular business model, I mean, it's extremely important to create through branding and marketing a recognition, a climate of safety, and that actually makes obviously our process of lead generation actually a lot smoother. In our particular scenario, also, what we sell as a hotel, when you're selling, I mean, there's somebody that's going to pay $200 a night, I mean, to come and stay at one of your hotels, is also the same person that we're marketing to in our lead generation programs to come actually on our certificate sales. So that obviously has to be done and orchestrated in a way that both elements actually compensate each other and that there's actually a clear understanding and guidelines as to how those two customers view these two offers or these two contact points that they're going. So definitely, I mean, I'm a big proponent that marketing and branding in an industry like ours is absolutely key to make actually not only the lead generation and prospect generation, but also the sales process smoother.
I don't know, Mark, would you like to add something to, or Julia?
I'll add one quick thing, which is just, your brand really sets the tone for what your consumers are going to expect when they walk into your sales centers. And having a consistent brand across all of your consumer touch points is just key. So you can't just have a good brand in social or just have a good brand when they actually walk in the doors of your property, but that brand needs to be consistent across all screens that they might interact with. So that includes the web, social, review sites, but also in your offline channels. So traditional marketing channels like direct mail. So it's just important that you have a really cohesive experience, because that way when they do walk into your sales centers, it's going to be exactly what they expected.
Thank you. How about online reputation? How does your brand impact your online reputation, and